Number 14, public safety enhancements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a follow-up item from May of 2025 when we introduced the concept of some safety improvements that we were considering. Town Council asked for some additional specific information, which is included in your agenda packet. We're going to run through this slide deck. Joining me in our presentation is going to be Lieutenant Huff, as well as a representative from Flock Safety, Mr. Wershaw. So will be available for different lines of questioning. But I'm going to run through this slide deck relatively quickly because I believe that we've shown most of this in your May presentation. So next slide. Flock Safety is the technology that we're talking about. I think the big number here is two of them. 2,800 plus crimes solved per day using Flock technology. 6,000 communities and growing every day communities that are protected by Flock. Once you see and understand what the installation looks like, when you drive around now in Southern California, if you're looking for it, you can see it everywhere, without doubt. So very, very, maybe the 180-degree difference from the point-in-time count technology to what we're doing here with Flock is completely driven by technology, in some forms AI as well. So next slide. Collaborative policing technology, it's basically a force multiplier, and that is really the selling point. The 24/7 service that it can provide to local communities negates the need for communities like Yucca Valley to have to continue to engage with our Sheriff's Department with continuing to build our Schedule A and cost level structure for additional deputies. So it's very, very cost effective and can provide information that will go forward and solve many of the crimes. Next slide, please. Obviously, I think my initial knee-jerk reaction when I began to review the proposal was I'm not normally a Big Brother guy. I get mad when I see things come on my social media feed when I didn't talk about them, but they're there, and I was thinking about it. So I have some thoughts about how this impacts our personal privacy. And so we want to make sure that whatever solution that we're recommending to the council and to the community is recognizing the importance of that. And so there are a number of different safeguards, guardrails, if you will, that are included in the technology that will ensure to the degree possible a lot of these privacy issues. By the way, in your agenda packet, the third recommendation is for us to be able to implement this, we're required to come back according to state law to provide you a data policy of how we would handle data collection, data management, and so that's one of your recommendations this evening. Let's move to the next slide. So what are specifically we talking about? This is really the technology. That's about all it is. It is a camera technology that reads license plates. It is solar powered. The infrastructure to put it into place is simple, it's cost effective, and can be deployed in many different applications. Next slide. So this is, again, this is a description of kind of the technology that's used. Louis, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add on this slide here in terms of the different types of technologies that are allowed through the Flock system.
Certainly. So what the camera does is it takes a image of the license plate. It'll do an immediate comparison of ABC 123 against pre-enrolled databases for wanted vehicles. If nothing comes up that matches that license plate, the image is just simply cached and available for review later on if it ever comes up as a necessity. The camera is also going to do what's called a vehicle fingerprint. So whether there's a license plate or not, we're still going to be able to actually capture that vehicle and tell you that it's a black Ford F-150, might have another indication, maybe it's got a USC tag or what have you. So we'll give all of that information as well. Cameras will work 24/7 in any lighting condition. And again, as you mentioned earlier, fully solar powered, so very low impact on the city. And as we're not tapping into any power, we don't have to worry about copper theft and that type of thing.
Thank you. You could go to the next slide, and that identifies just by bullet point what Louis was talking about on the vehicle fingerprints. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, it's automated technology, 24/7, doesn't call out sick, doesn't have issues, is always there and always functional. And so that's some of the efficiencies that we gain in our public safety approach. Next slide. All right, next slide. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Huff just to talk a few minutes about the progress that we've had in deploying flock throughout the Morongo Basin and where it's been deployed already and some of the successes that we've had.
Thank you. As you all know, I'm a huge proponent of this technology, and I've been working this probably for about the last 2 years to basically encapsulate kind of the Morongo Basin. Riverside County, they're completely engulfed with flock. And unfortunately, the biggest issue that I saw is that obviously we are probably one of the major hubs to Arizona. We parallel a major railway where we have a lot of train thefts or the proverbial train heists, and we have a massive transient population up here as well. You know, a lot of folks from LA, from up north, from down in San Diego County. So part of the issues that I found or that I saw was from the investigative standpoint is that the Morongo Basin, basically we were a dark hole when it came up to any investigative data that we actually had, not only within the county, but from other adjoining counties such as Riverside County. Riverside County, like I mentioned, they have a plethora of systems set up throughout their county, and fortunately, what they've been able to do is they've actually been able to help us solve some of our crimes. The problem that we see up here in our detective bureau sees is that we don't have a local database. And what I mean by that is, obviously, like I said, we have a lot of transients that come out here, commit crimes, then go back to their respective neighborhoods and cities and whatnot. The question is, what do we do with our locals here that are committing a bunch of crimes? And unfortunately, we don't have the vehicle license plate data that we should. So that's when I started looking into this project. Many years ago, I oversaw a project in the city of Highland called Vigilant. And Vigilant was kind of, I would say, knowing what I know now about flock, Vigilant is definitely flock's little brother. Definitely flock's little brother. But from an investigative standpoint, it is like completely aided our investigators. Like we always use this term with flock, that it's a force multiplier, you know what I mean? But it's completely aided our investigators with various investigations. Since the inception, so locally, the 62 corridor is my main priority, not only the business corridor areas, but the adjoining neighborhoods to the north and south of the highway. Back in February, we launched the project in 29 Palms. So far, 29 Palms, we have 9 total intersections that are covered. Tremendous collaboration with the city manager there as well as Curtis, and it is proved priceless as far as the expediency of cases our investigators, not just our investigators, but our deputies, have actually been able to solve crimes. So several different instances. I think probably one that everybody's familiar with is the Palm Springs bombing. So the Palm Springs bombing, we were actually able to identify the vehicle. We were able to capture the vehicle. We were able to identify the registered owner and whatnot through additional databases, and we were actually able to track that vehicle all the way down to Palm Springs, where we actually linked into their flock systems there, you know. So it was a huge benefit for the FBI and the ATF when they're establishing timelines and suspects and basically the method of operation from the suspect. There's several other cases. Our detectives, as a matter of fact, from the 29 Palms flock system, just 2 weeks ago, we had a rather egregious lewd and lascivious act with a female minor under the age of 14, so 11 to be exact. And unfortunately, this suspect was a local up here, but the unfortunate thing too is that this suspect also victimized several other children, not just in San Bernardino County, but in Riverside County as well. Fortunately, we were able to identify modes of travel, locations where the suspect went solely using flock, and we actually captured the suspect out in Riverside County. So it's a tremendous system, and I love it. I mean, it's a great system, and I think it's only going to benefit the citizens of this community and the entire Morongo Basin.
Terrific. Thanks, Lieutenant. Appreciate that. Let's move to the next slide. This identifies the potential locations primarily along Highway 62. That is our primary business corridor, so we do focus on that. It's important to recognize that the technology is scalable. So kind of my thought was, as we begin to deploy it, well, let's start small. Let's ensure that we can see how the technology works, flush out any bugs, whether they're data-driven or whether they're infrastructure or permitting with Caltrans or whatever that might be. And then we can always scale up. Pretty easy to add additional locations as the case may be. But if you think about it, I mean, Yucca Valley, you have 3 points of entry and exit, and so it's relatively straightforward in trying to identify where you want to be looking. So I believe that's the last slide. Next one. Okay, that is the next one. That's the last one. So the recommendation before the council, before we answer any questions for you, is to receive an update regarding the safety enhancements. Number 2, authorize a 2-year contract with Flock Safety for the procurement, installation, data retention in an amount not to exceed $158,000. Direct staff to develop and return an automated license plate reader policy addressing specific details to protect privacy and civil liberties, including authorized purpose, access control, monitoring and security, data sharing restrictions, data retention, for council consideration. With that, we'd be happy to answer questions after public comment.
Thank you. Anyone in the public, would you like to comment on the Flock camera system? Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you again. This sounds like a wonderful idea. I'm all in favor of it. This is great. I was just running the numbers here. So 158,000, how many cameras approximately are to be installed for $158,000?
So it's initially 20 camera locations, and so it's the cameras, the installation, turnkey, permitting, and then data retention and access for the first initial 2-year period.
Okay, that's what I thought, and I just wanted to confirm. So divided by 20, that's almost $8,000 per camera installation, 2 years, correct, of service. Oh, sorry. So that makes sense. However, I looked online at the city of Campbell, California, and they have it listed that the Flock safety system is $2,500 per camera. So I was just curious why they're charging us so much more versus Campbell. Just a question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? In the public? Anyone online? No. So let's take it back to the council. Go ahead, Councilmember Dennison.
Yeah, thank you. This might be for the lieutenant. So I started thinking there were mentioned during the presentation that vehicles that may not have a license plate, which would be common for some of the characters that come in and out for, not good deeds. And then there was a thing about fingerprints, so it can help identify the car based on its, look and stickers and all that. Would it also apply in our area? We have a lot of off-road motorcycles used, ATVs, things like that. Would it be able to identify those on the street as vehicles and then also try and follow that? We've had quite a few runs from law enforcement on those off-road vehicles. So I was just curious about that, if that is included or not.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, last week our deputies got in pursuit of a guy on an OHV on a motorcycle. Stolen motorcycle, the guy was a fugitive out of San Diego, had some federal warrants and whatnot. So we were actually able to track him through 29 Palms, even though it didn't have a license plate and whatnot, but it was like the descriptors or the fingerprint that you're talking about. And that's the AI access that it actually gives us, where sometimes we don't necessarily need a license plate to identify a vehicle, where it's going or where it's been, or certain areas where it frequents and whatnot. But literally, I believe this was just last week that we got in a long pursuit.
Well, that's good news for us because it is, every area is different.
Right.
We certainly have a lot of those kinds of vehicles out here, and sometimes they are stolen like that. And so I'm thankful for the deputies for being able to stop someone that was a felon out there stealing motorcycles, in our basin. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Schooler.
Wanted to ask staff, The policy that we are to develop here, that it seems like there's probably templates everywhere. Is this, how long would we expect that to take to come back to us? with
We're
a policy?
anticipating this at your next council meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mayor, if I might just respond to one additional question.
Yes.
So the question from the individual in the public, I think is a great question. And our representative from Flock, he may want to chime in here. But I think initially, we don't know what that other cost incorporates. And so for California, I think each individual city is going to be a little bit different depending on the infrastructure type that we're using, the type of permitting that's required. For example, when we put it, or when we want to put it on Caltrans' existing infrastructure, that permitting process is extraordinarily painful. And so that may take time, and that is all on the vendor to do. And so there may be other factors. Louis, I don't know if you have any other additional information you want to add on that component.
I don't have enough detail on the Campbell project to be able to speak to it at the moment, but I'd be happy to share information with you at a later date.
But the point is well taken, and we'd be happy to look at that closer.
Perfect. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have anything?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I was first introduced to the Flock system at a conference, I believe it was about a year and a half ago. I was very much sold on the concept. Public safety is a real important priority for our council and for our community. We really pride ourselves on the men and women that are out there protecting us, and we really want to support them. We also included some additional funding for an extra detective, and also we have a limited budget. So this is a great way to give some tools to our partners in law enforcement to be able to solve crimes, to be able to act quickly before another victim happens to be sought after, and also get more time for detectives, or excuse me, help speed up the time of detectives being able to get cases off their books. The gentleman who's on the online there with Flock, obviously the Flock system has a lot of different types of cameras, a lot of different abilities. We're looking at one for license plates and so forth. My question is, how was it determined? Was it with the Sheriff's Department in cooperation with you on where the locations were going to be for our first phase? And then also my second follow-up question would be, as we expand, which I'm hoping we do, I think it's important to try to get cameras closer to different particular neighborhoods. So if there's, let's say, a theft off of a porch, or somebody assaults somebody at a home, or someone's abducted in a particular neighborhood, let's say it's Country Club area or Sky Harbor or up on the Mesa or something like that, the closer the cameras are to the crime, the better. So I was wondering, how we went about picking these as our first phase, and am I correct in wanting cameras to be closer to actual neighborhoods?
Mayor Pro Tem, I could probably answer that a little better.
Okay,
than
very good.
Louis. So obviously I've been working on this since the ground up and the inception. So initially, obviously, number one priority is to identify the actual product. Number two is how we're actually going to utilize the product. Number three, where are we going to utilize the product? So where we're going to utilize the product is probably going to be the most significant factor in utilizing this actual product. So with that, I went through our criminal intelligence division, and I ran calls for service for the last 3 years throughout the entire Morongo Basin, broke it down into the unincorporated areas, town of Yucca Valley, and the city of 29 Palms. So for this particular project, which I ran exactly the same as the city of 29 Palms, I broke down those areas of concern that are broken down between like our Part 1 and Part 2 type crimes. So obviously, like our Part 2 type crimes, like our theft-related crimes, vandalisms, and whatnot, we identified, and my team, we identified those certain areas that were most problematic based solely on statistics and calls for service. To me, what's most important is kind of like the objective things. Like, our deputies, you ask them, okay, well, what's a problem area? You know what I mean? Oh, we always get calls for service here, or when somebody breaks into a residence, this is the route that they always take. So sometimes I love numbers, I love technology, but sometimes that human factor gets taken away. Sometimes you just got to ask somebody. You just have to ask, one of the many deputies. So that was basically how we identified the actual locations of where these were going to be set up. So as Curtis made mention, initially, I had identified for phase 1, 9 different locations. We kind of scaled that down to five different locations, but like you said, we can still build off of these. We can also identify how successful these locations are, and the equipment's modular, so we can move this around if we find that, yeah, you know what, maybe those statistics aren't really providing the results that we're actually looking for as far as crime fighting and public safety. So.
And the other reason I'm excited that we're finally bringing this to our community is because all the other communities, or most of the communities around us, are using and utilizing flock. So we don't want to encourage those that want to do ill will to go to our area that's blacked out right now and doesn't have a system to perpetrate crime and then drive back to their own communities. So we don't want to be behind the curve. We don't want to encourage people to come to our area. We want to make sure we keep ourselves protected. The installation time and all that, I'm a little concerned with Caltrans, and as projects go so slowly, we obviously have license plate reader technology on your vehicles already, on your sheriff's units and highway patrol. But getting this system up and running will be very important. And again, as mentioned, hiring another deputy with all the benefits and all the liability and all the other things is super, super expensive. So this is a good use of our funds, and also giving, like I said, tools to our deputies to be even more effective. And also, I'm sure it gets really frustrating when you can't solve crimes. So if we can help you, that would be great.
Thank you. So now it's the time to, let's see here, that we receive this update. And we have 3 items on the update, and our town manager read those. So one of them, I'll just say it shortly. Authorize the flock camera system, authorize a 2-year contract, and develop and return an automated license plate reader policy. So anybody want to make a motion?
I would love to move this item.
Second?
Councilmember Zabel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Schooler,
Yes.
and Mayor Droz.
Yes.